Let me move on to your third one, the commitment to debate and tolerance. Now, there are two things I wanted to ask you here. Firstly, to what extent have we fashioned within the university the kind of identity that would allow us to actually truly be tolerant of each other? In other words, to what extent have we been able to fashion the idea of an identity of a truly non-racial community in which people can have robust exchanges?
It was the race debate happening before I came here that particularly triggered that concern. I had a sense when I came that people felt that when you got into the debate about race, you were either labeled racist or you were labeled as playing the race card, depending on which side of the debate you were, and that was having a chilling effect on discussion, and people were just not willing to engage. They were withdrawing. When they did engage, it was usually sort of off the record or amongst people who felt they had the same ideas. And my concern was that a university where that debate should be free and no views in a sense should be heretical, no one should be condemned for their views, that the university was at risk, and in fact it wasn't that sort of environment. It'd be hard for me to be sure whether it's how free it is, but I think, and we'd have to ask members of the audience.
Well, I'm intrigued, because what I want to probe you on
I think it's a lot freer. I think people are comfortable in that debate.
But is there a sense in which we're actually, that people don't feel alienated one from the other? To what extent is this becoming a community which prefigures the sort of South Africa which was imagined in our constitution, but which in our grander society is a long way from being achieved?
And it's a long way from being achieved here too. I just think we're making progress. I think the debates and discussions happen more freely. They happen in Senate. We had some really good debates, public debates around the admissions policy. And my sense was that people felt comfortable expressing a very wide range of views, and others were tolerant and listening to those. And they're robust debates.
Well, okay. But can I ask one thing about this, which perhaps you may want to deal with in a slightly different way? But I just thought, because this issue of the relationship between the various parts of our university community, with the academics, the professionals, the support staff, there's always a perennial tension between the various components. And that still exists. And you have to accept that.
Yeah.
And to what extent, and that's quite deeply felt from what the research that I started anecdotally to be doing in preparation for this.
Yeah. And that was something I wasn't really aware of coming in 5 years ago. I've become more aware of it. I don't think we've made a lot of progress in that regard. And if you were to come maybe at the end of, well, I'll say it now, but on my list of things that need to be tackled for the next 5 years, this is one of the high priority issues around what we've called institutional culture. The sense on both sides, the sense of this divide, the sense that our professional and administrative staff have, that they're not valued as much as academics, because academia is considered the core business and the rest is support. So there's that perception, and it seems to me it gets reproduced in all sorts of subtle ways, which I'm not even fully aware of, and we need to
Well, what is our core
deal with
business?
that. Our core business is to be an academic institution, research, teaching, and engaged scholarship. But that core business can't be done without twice as many non-academic staff. So we have twice as many non-academic staff in the university as we have academic staff. And that's because the academic staff can't live and work without the others. Everything from managing student recruitment and registering students and records and graduations and exam systems to making sure that, when there's a power outage, that we still have power, the maintenance, the new buildings. We had a phenomenal building program over the last 5 years, and maintenance program. So all of that is essential support to the academic program.
Well, I'll also return to that because it's a convenient way for me to get to a fourth point, which is discovery of new knowledge. And that, of course, leads us to research. And there were a series of questions that were asked by people within the university community about this. I've selected a couple, which I want to press you on. The one is this. UCT suggested is supposed to be a research-led university. There's a strong link between excellence in research and economic and social development of society. Point being that instead of selecting 4 or 5 or 6 topics, in a way, if you do the one, it's going to flow into the other. Why then, the question is asked, have you not promoted excellence in research as a core function of all staff, and why is excellent research not recognized or adequately rewarded? And there are a whole range of points made about the funding models that we adopt, that it doesn't privilege really fine researchers, that in fact you don't give them the kind of recognition, they get minimal recognition, there's not sufficient promotion of excellence, that it should be the core function, and you're not doing that.
Perhaps I'll answer it, but I just want to highlight the fact that there was another question sent, which was that we only privilege research and we don't privilege teaching.
I'm coming to teaching, don't worry.
And so I'm going to...
One of the wonders here is that I can get you from both sides, you see.
So everyone is going to feel aggrieved in some ways, but let me start with the
let's
research.
start with research.
The track record of the actual performance of the university in research is, I think, phenomenal. Measured in the objective criteria of the growth in the number of publications, the growth in citations, the growth in the amount of money that is being raised by research contracts and research grants, the number of A-rated scientists that we have, the number of rated scientists, the number of centers of excellence, the SACHI chairs, the South African research, there is the South African NRF research chairs. There are about, now I think about 90 in the country, and 33 of them are at UCT. If we were getting our fair share in terms of proportions out of 23 universities, we would have about 5 or 6. So to have 33, and this has been growing. So I think that the track record of research at the university is very good. That doesn't mean we're rewarding research as well.
No,
enough.
it doesn't. It doesn't mean that you couldn't be much better.
Yeah, but and it doesn't. So it doesn't mean. But it doesn't mean we're not valorizing research as an activity. How do we reward researchers? I suspect that one of the things underlying that question is the debate about whether we should be paying researchers a direct subsidy for their publications, because many universities do that. So
yeah,
and
you
that's
don't.
a direct reward. We don't, because we don't think that is, we think that you should fund research based on a proposal of what the person is going to do and a decision about whether it's excellent.
So why can't they get the money to do further research from the research that they've done?
Because that money is funding research across the board. So if you want to...
So let me get this right. So good people have to subsidize poor people.
In a sense, everyone had to start off. And we need
no,
to
I'm
make
not
sure...
talking about start-offs. I mean, we can deal with that. What about the fact...
That's what we
do. Let's say, so you're telling me that this money is used for start-offs. So that's why they don't get.
So the money is used to fund not only start-offs, it's used to fund everyone. But it's used to fund people. Let me give you an example.
Sure.
The money that you get from a research publication for a science publication is exactly the same, about 120,000 Rand, as the money you get for a legal publication in your field. But the cost of doing the science publication is 10 times higher. It needs consumables, it needs laboratories, it may need a much bigger team of researchers or scientists. If you were to fund the research by rewarding people the way that the government gives us the subsidy, you would have very little work done in the humanities and commerce and in law, and you'd have maybe a lot more money going into the sciences and the health sciences. So what we're trying to do is we take that amount of money that we get and we decide what is the best way to spend it. Sometimes some of it gets spent on new researchers who cannot write their own research grants yet or won't be successful because they don't have a track record. Some of it is spent on postdocs. Some is on doctoral scholarships across the board, and they are needed in all areas. Some to fund research that's not expensive, but a lot of it goes disproportionately to research that's more expensive.
Well, then let me put another question to you in relation to this. Question was put concerning the aspirational goal of taking UCT from being a research-led university to one that was research-intensive. Question says, given the inadequacy of South African government support for research, and I think we have to accept that that is so, and I certainly take cognizance of the fact that we're now going to have 2 more universities, so God knows where we're going to get any more money from the government, and the growing competition for third stream income from universities in Asia, South America, and elsewhere in Africa. How do you propose to configure UCT's funding model to support this?
Can I come back to the previous question of rewarding the researchers.
Yeah, but I'm much more, okay,
want,
yeah.
You know, new money.
Yeah, well, new money is
there's-
really important.
Well, so
You can come back with
it's a
pleasure,
big,
but I want
it's a
to
big
move on.
challenge, and,
Yeah?
and it's another one of those challenges for the next 5 years. We've been doing reasonably well, and we've been doing well mainly from international funders. So we get a large amount of money from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We've just received a significant amount for economics research. A couple of days ago, 10 million rand coming through for JPAL, one of the economics research units. And what we have to do firstly is to ensure that we have the infrastructure to help people access those international funds. That infrastructure is partly by running, for example, efficient offices. We're going to probably be employing more people who help write research grants, because academics spend a lot of it's time consuming. It's not always the most productive activity for an academic to do, and one of the ways we can support them is by having professional grant writers support them. Another thing that we need to do is to position the university so that international funders and international partners want to partner with us rather than anyone else. And that's part of the vision too for the next few years. I talked before about positioning UCT as an Afropolitan university in order to make it position that. And in research, what we've done, I think, quite successfully, is to create a number of networks. We've joined, for example, the Worldwide Universities Network, 19 universities. We're the only African university. And we are the access, in a way, for those other 18 universities into the continent. And almost any project which those universities want to do, we will be included as a partner in, and we will access funds through that. So some of it is external funding, let's just say, and it's through our positioning. Another way that we need to, I think, focus on external funding is government funding. And there I think we have to challenge the funding approach of the higher education and of the Department of Science and Technology. Because by and large, their approach is one of egalitarianism, to give every university the same. We get actually less money for a law student than Fort Hare does, because there's a top slice for redress, which goes to Fort Hare, which we don't get. And then the formula gives us the same amount as everyone else, which means that we don't get any extra. We do get some money for those research publications, but that's sort of after the fact if we've done them. But in general, we don't get money for being a research university. Around the world, most countries have recognized, China was one of the first to do this, Germany has done it, France, Taiwan, Japan, has recognized that you can't have all your universities being research universities. You've got to be selective.
So if the Chinese are able to do that, should we not be pushing for the fact that maybe there should be 2 or 3 great universities that do research in this country and have the courage to say so?
Exactly. And I have said that.
Where have you said
it's
that?
It's an unpopular, firstly to the HISA group, the Higher Education South Africa.
And they don't like you for that.
And to the minister, yeah. And they don't like that view. And because of course, the 3 or 4 universities that are likely to be the research universities of the country are also the universities that were historically.
Yes, well, that's why I asked you earlier about reconfiguring identity. Unless you do that, we're going to be dead in the water. We've got to do that.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you.
We do have to make the point, if our government wants to have world-class universities that are competitive, that are doing the research that has been done elsewhere, can adapt, they